Identify earthquake faults and other geology cues from the air. This video is about exposing you to some key indicators as well as giving you an appreciation of some of those factors that are of relevance as regards to where we decide to live from an angle of natural hazards and even from an angle of pretty much going about zoning and land use planning. It is not a case that I want you to try and operate as a geoscientist, but it's about you understanding that these are some of those things that we geoscientists will look at to help in basically safeguarding our nations or our interests overall. So first of all, what it is that I want you to gather is that this is a landscape that highlights what we call karst topography. Karst topography basically is a representation or some key characteristics where you have those uh, rounded hills and those depressions in between. Now, this reflects carbonate geology. And what you should also be able to see pretty much about into the northeast of this image is that nice little line or relatively big line that busts through this nice green pasture. And if you have guessed it right, that is a highlight of a fault. Now, what it is that I would like to also highlight is that as this plane flies over this section of the landscape, that there basically is a change in terms of the overall nature of the geology in terms of the interaction. If you look at that fault, you can see in the middle of it, it's like a whitish area in the indentation there. That's where more than likely there is a quarry. And you should also see that there is pretty much not that consistent lineage of this fault. That's because that fault has been pushed up by another fault. This fault you should be able to see right here. And what is also highlighted as well to support this is that there is a change in the overall landscape. So you're not really seeing that consistent karst topography in this zone. That shows you that the geology has some degree of mixing. Now, as the airplane continues to move, you should be able to see also that the consistency of the karst topography has shifted. Uh, that zoom in is basically just highlighting another zone of structural difference, and that is a representation of another fault zone right there. Now, what it is that I highlight here is that basically you should be able to see that there is a beginning of a reflection of settlement. The settlement exists where there is that separation between a faulted block relative to the left and a faulted block pretty much to the right or the northwest, southeast, sorry, northeast, southwest, respectively. So you can see here, you can see the stadium pitch right there. I believe that's GC Foster. But there are some interesting cues as well. We can see that basically the vegetation aligns in a particular way. And this alignment could be human, but it could also be as a result of the structural alignment based on, pretty much where faults are aligned. In addition to that, it could also be that there is a nearby drainage point, meaning rivers or streams. Now, you should be able to see that there is a highway there. That highway basically is bounded by faults that pretty much run along the length of the highway. Hence the reason why you can see that there is pretty much that hill slope towards the right of the highway relative to the left where it's relatively flat. And so that zoom in right there. In between the highway and basically rather to the left of the highway or more so to the south of the highway, which is from where you're looking, you should be able to see that the population is still relatively dense. Well, so the population is dense on areas of flat, but you should also see that the the karst topography that you would have noticed at the beginning of the video is no longer as visible. So we can see elevations of green area, but this elevation represents a difference in terms of the overall geology. Right here as well, we can also see that there is a degree of green pasture that is relatively flat, and this is somewhat bounded to the right and to the left by the hill area, which represents that this zone is a graben, which pretty much means that it's as a result of faults that basically has resulted in that land section there sinking. And then here now we have basically the Hunts Bay going into the Kingston Harbor. So this Google terrain map just gives a representation of what it is that you would have actually seen. It shows you that the overall makeup of the land is as a result of the overall structural features as well as the geology features.